Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a Facebook Live presentation, a new series that I have added to my Facebook channel. Is that right to say Facebook channel? I always get it mixed up. So my Facebook page, I don't know, whatever. But so we are here with a new series that I put together called Mindful Conversations. And the whole point of this series is to interview really great people in their fields, have conversations talking about health, wellness, mindsets, physical activity, you name it, we're going to talk about it, how it affects us and what we can do to have a better life, basically. These are individuals that I have handpicked, and it helps if they paid me, but no, I'm just kidding. And these are individuals that I have handpicked to come on and share their knowledge with you, so that you can take away something incredible and better your life. So tonight's guest, speaking on many other things, but especially on biohacking, is my friend and colleague, Dr. Joan Tekula. And I have known Joan for a few years now. So I want to make sure I wrote stuff down. I gave myself notes because, you know, sometimes I wing it on my other Facebook show. But this one, I want to make sure that I have everything that I need to say and get to. So even though I know this already, I'm still going to make sure. So Dr. Joan is a podiatric physician of 32 years, also an entrepreneur on various brick and mortar businesses, and most recently has been a technology scout and specialist for a company to commercialize inventions. And I did say she's my friend, right? Because she's like only the awesome people I have on here, because and only the friends that are awesome, you know, that kind of thing. And
that way I didn't have to pay you.
What'd you say, Joan? I'm sorry.
That way I didn't have to pay you.
That's right. That's exactly right. Hi, Joan. How are you tonight?
Excellent, Lori. Thank you. How are you?
I'm really well. I'm doing well. How are we doing through all this craziness and sheltering in place? How you holding up?
I have adapted to this life pretty sweet. I want to first pay respect to people who are sick and suffering and the loss of people who are experiencing. A lot of people are living in fear. I am not one of them. But I think there's a bright, there's definitely a silver lining. I think that some people are aware that there is change coming, and that we have to pay attention to what we're being forced to do now and what is good about that. And hopefully we will carry that, make the changes necessary to carry those more positive changes into our life after we are no longer forced to stay at home. So
yes,
I'm doing okay.
I agree. I totally agree on that. And you know, that's why I wanted you to come on the program. So just to give you some background, so Joan and I have known each other for a few years, and we met through LinkedIn, and she reached out to me, and she was reaching out to me on a business venture that she had at that time. And I remember this, I was thinking about this the other day, I graciously passed on it, but I said, I'd still love to connect with you and network with you. And she was so taken back by the fact that I was honest about it and said, you know, I don't think we'll work together, but I would still love to network with you. So she took me up on this, and we started to chat, and she ended up, you ended up attending one of my workshops, and because it was close to your house. And that was that. We just completely hit it off. I absolutely adore her. She's been practicing basically health and wellness. I mean, you've been practicing it your entire life. And, you know, for someone such as myself, who I've known all this information for years, but finally implemented it into my life. So I've always been very impressed, with people such as yourself, and that's what impressed me about you was, you know, you were an entrepreneur all these years. You were a single mom, and although her kids are grown now, but you were doing all of this, and you were just making it happen. And you also were always making sure that you were taking care of yourself, and maybe not exactly in the same way that you are. We're going to talk about that, but you always made the effort. You were always looking ahead. You know, being a podiatrist, you know, it's the medical field, you know, And yet you still had a very, very open mind about your approach to wellness and healthcare and yourself. So, as a professional entrepreneur, so this is my question that I have written, but I've already started to like ask it. So you are amazing health and in shape, and she really is, man. You gotta see the figure on her. Like,
Here we go.
I'm serious. Two children, although grown, but she was a single mom doing this all by herself. Okay, how challenging was it for you to create and maintain balance, and also have self-care, if you had it back then, all those years ago?
I have always been involved in self-care ever since I was very, very young. I grew up with a sister who was diagnosed as diabetic when I was 4 years old. So I had a very unusual and sometimes, in some ways, painful experience having to go in and out of hospitals, whether I felt it was like us doing that. But it was also tremendously good exposure in that we had the finest medical care for my sister. Growing up in New York City, we had, New York Hospital and really the pioneers in the field of diabetes. And I was exposed to the impact that food had on your body at a time when there was no connection. No other medical field recognized and gave any credit or importance to the nutrition that you did or didn't put into your body and how that had impacted it. But diabetes was a direct result of what you were eating. And she was on a strict diet. And so as a little girl, 4 years old, I knew that what I ate was going to impact my health. And I was very aware that I didn't know. It was really a blessing. I mean, it was a blessing having her as a sister. I took a vow for that I don't do sick. And I don't. I don't do sick not only because I've made a decision. So I think there's a psychological component, but I've lived the life. I've said, well, then I have to take the actions necessary to keep my body the incredible healing machine that it is. And that's been my lifelong goal and my passion and my mission that I carry forward.
It's incredible to have such tremendous insight at such a young age, because, right, you also consciously became a vegetarian as a child.
Yes. Yeah. That wasn't for health reasons. That's because I learned that meat was an animal. And I was like, oh no, I'm not eating my furry friends. I love my animals. I mean, I couldn't wrap my mind around it. But in those days, and we're talking 19s, when I wanted to give up meat, I was probably about 5, so 66. That's a long time ago. And that's when people said, your mom said, you sit there and you eat everything on your plate. And I'd be sitting there, the sun would be going down. I'd still be sitting there with the food in front of me. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So yes, I became a vegetarian when I could speak up and say I'm not putting that in my body, period.
So that's incredible. And so as a child and as you were growing, you maintained that lifestyle, even as you were going through school with your training, your professional training, and still us not catching up to the idea that eating and what you're putting in your body makes all the difference in the world. So yet you still persevered with that.
Well, I was acutely aware. I didn't only have an intellectual knowledge. I read a lot of books. I read the Pritikin diet when I was real young and upped my, my fiber in my diet. And I understood that if you can prevent a form of cancer by increasing the fiber in your diet, not leaving all that matter behind, I'm in. So yeah, I did the kinds of things I needed to do. But you had asked me a question earlier that I didn't actually answer, and I apologize. You asked about the balance of raising my children as a single mom and an entrepreneur and a medical professional and all that. And to be quite honest with you, I was out of balance initially. I had a very, I knew my agenda for life. I wanted to be a mom first. And as a consequence of having grown up with a single mom, my mother was divorced when I was 7, which was very unusual. My mom raised 3 girls by herself in New York City.
3 girls by herself and with one that was ill.
And a sister that was considered terminally ill. So she was pretty incredible woman. And I learned from her. And I also learned good things and I learned bad things. And what I learned by a negative example was I was never going to rely on a man for money, but I needed to have children. So I followed a path that was going to take me where I needed to go. I did not put all my effort into making.
Side note, I need to jump in here. We're not anti-man. Like we're just.
No, not at all. But what's really sad?
We just know our power. That's it. We just know the power of women. So
when your mother raises you, someone once said to me, "You a feminist?" I said, "Absolutely not. I was raised by a mother. I went to a private girls' school taught all by female teachers, and I have two sisters. I just never knew what men were for."
Yeah.
So it's not male bashing. I don't dislike
That's not really what they're for, 100%.
I do. I do. I have two kids. I have two kids. but
Tonight, how's that? We woke up. Okay, so go ahead. Yes.
So when I went into private practice, I had a part-time practice from the start. I was never intending to make so much money that I could buy things that I didn't need or want. My goal was to make enough money to be able to take care of my children on my own and never have to worry. And that's what I did. I spent all the money I made every year, but I was really a full-time mom. The reason I fell out of balance is I began to pursue things from home, various careers, various businesses, online businesses and networking businesses and that. And you know, I fell out of balance because I saw the vision of where that could take me. And I kind of pushed my kids to the side initially. But if I was doing the business, I did that, but not when I spent time with my children. I let work move into that area. So I think that I have a lot of compassion for moms and parents that are all of a sudden finding themselves working from home and also having their children home and trying to figure out like how exactly to do that. And I think the key to it is children need to see that we have needs of our own, whether they be to exercise or to sleep in or to work, and we need to compartmentalize that. That needs to be, because we'll teach them then that self-care and that the importance that we give. But we also have to give that focus time to our children and not allow that to be the place that we're flexible. Well, it's okay if I take a call while I'm with my kids. No, it isn't.
Yes.
They have to be as important.
Right.
And once I figured that out, I was in much better shape. And I raised my children, like you said, as a single mom. I worked out every day. I used to tell my kids, while I'm working out, if you fall down, you kiss your knee, you kiss your boo-boo, you be your mommy, because mommy is filling the well. I'm taking care of mommy so I can be a better mom for you. And that's how I did it. But I always did have, just from, you know, because of my exposure with Julie, my sister, who's since passed, sadly, and just, you know, my hunger and my thirst and hunger for reading and learning about how the body worked and fine tuning it and what was good for it and what wasn't good for it. And then, of course, I was so in tune with the way that I felt. I was able to correlate when I ate carbohydrates in the morning that I had horrible hypoglycemic reaction. I used to want to eat my own hand off at 10. Like I did not do well with carbs. So I began to like listen to my body and do what it told me. If I didn't get enough sleep, I didn't feel well. Well, the solution for that is not eating more. You have to identify it as tired. Sleep more. You got to feed the right appetite. You got to get the right nutrition. I might be calorically filled, but nutritionally deficient. I don't feel right. Got to get those nutrients in there. So it really was a gift how my life started.
So you brought up a really good point, because it is about awareness. Like, you know, I teach professional development, or personal development rather, and professional, I guess, but it's about awareness. Like, you cannot make a change in your life unless you're aware of it. So for you to have that insight and have that awareness of saying, you know, I don't want to put certain things in, you know, they make me feel awful, and I don't want, and to notice it. You didn't have to be told that. You felt it. There's so many of us out there that, and I have to include myself because I've done this to myself, but then I started to pay attention. Like, why did I feel so lousy in the morning? And then I thought about what I ate, and then I didn't eat it. And then I would experiment a little bit until it became painfully obvious.
Right. What was the cause of your discomfort?
We get in our heads that we want to eat this stuff. We want to drink this stuff. We want to have it regardless of the consequences, or we don't want to admit to ourselves that this is how we feel, you know, based on what we're putting in. And it's not even just what the foods we're putting in, because we're going to talk about a few other things before we go tonight. It's also about, you know, what you're thinking and supplements and like anything, like the water we're drinking, and like it's all these things. So it's cool that you had that insight, like, and you've stayed with it. So now tell me about, or tell everybody about some of the entrepreneur projects that you had over the years, and, you know, like how you developed as a business owner.
So I had, I'd hear something and I think, oh, why didn't I think of that? Why, like all my life, I had my earliest invention was a toothbrush that had the toothpaste in the base and you squeeze a little out. And then years later, it was a product that I was like, darn, that was my idea. So I've always been creative, and my most creative juices flowed when I was taking care of seniors as a podiatrist. Mostly it's the geriatric community when you're in private practice. And they'd come in and say, I was late because I couldn't get off the toilet, or I couldn't get out of bed, or, I was sick, but they made me go into the hospital because they wanted to take care of me, or whatever their challenge was. And I thought, why don't we celebrate that aging process? Why are we all about dogs are us, or, kids are us, and babies are us? And then here's your catheter, go home and die. I could not understand why our most valued people, the ones that had all the experience that we had and then some, that we could turn to and learn from, we were pushed to the side as though they were without value. So my first company was inspired because I was always jerry-rigging and creating solutions to the indignities of aging. So I thought, let's open up a place, call it Thrive at Home, provide assistive technologies to facilitate independence, and celebrate the darn aging process. Commend these people who want to age in their home and stay, and make it easier for mobility and vision and hearing and toileting and all these wonderful things that are out there, so that they can actually be independent, because they're going to live longer and they're going to be happier, and we'll be celebrating them instead of saying, what do you want? You're not 16 anymore. No, that was not acceptable to me. So that's how it started. From that, I got into anti-aging, which was very different. There was a whole different population of people. It was not like the heartfelt. It was more about vanity, and they were kind of in denial of the inner demons that were driving them to be so focused on their looks. So that was kind of an adjustment. And then I became a technology scout, which was, I always say that my numerous businesses that didn't quite bring me success did earn me a reputation as somebody who had a vast knowledge of a whole, array of areas, nutrition and aesthetics and medicine and all that. And that I was an entrepreneur, and I was invited to become a technology scout for a company that commercialized inventions. So that's very
what does that mean? What is a technology scout?
So a technology scout.
I kind of grabbed something. Keep talking.
Okay, there is a concept of people don't know there's millions of dollars that are funneled into millions of dollars that are funneled into labs every year. University labs, government labs, with the intention that these brilliant minds, these scientists, are going to create technologies that are going to come out and be really disruptive and helpful. So a lot of the pharmaceutical companies, they don't actually invent their own drugs; they're invented in these labs, and then they come and they handpick them and they finance and facilitate the human studies, for instance, and the negotiations with the FDA, and then they bring it to market. So it's a matter of learning what's out there, having a base knowledge. You recognize when something's really disruptive, that something can address the opioid crisis by being a pain relief that uses vibration and not opioids, or something that can treat PCOS by using different amounts of drugs that are already on the market, but address the 3 components of PCOS and actually cure it. And it's a patented supply. And then, all kinds of really important things that the government only gives so much money, and they get to a point, and these guys are scientists, they're not business people.
Right.
They rely on companies like mine to come in with the backers, the investors, and the knowledge, the know-how, and actually take it and make it available to the public. And what was so exciting about that to me is that you'd asked me earlier before the taping started, but about biohacking. And that's a kind of a buzzword these days, and I want to kind of elaborate on it to my understanding of it. And we talk about hijacking is kind of the opposite of biohacking. Hijacking is like, okay, I know I'm going to die of heart disease because my dad did, and my dad's dad did, and no, something like 5% of what your DNA dictates you're going to get, those negative, those less desirable genetic expression, those diseases or whatever.
So just repeat that. So what's the percentage? Again, say that.
5%. And this is coming from Dr. Bruce Lipton, who is considered the father of epigenetics. Epigenetics is, you have a DNA molecule, right? A DNA strand. And on the ends of it are what they used to call junk protein. Like, what is this stuff? That is what epigenetics is about. Those proteins on the side are what decide what gets expressed from the gene here. So if you have treated these parts right through a variety of modalities, which I can tell you about in just a moment, then you can control the expression of the DNA and suppress the expression of those less desirable traits. So that's what epigenetics is.
I decided to come into the room while I'm recording.
Mine's out cold today. I took them for a walk, so they're leaving me alone.
Sorry. Oh, and before you go on, I just want to interrupt you for a second. I'm sorry, Joan. I just want to let everybody know that we're going to do comments, you know, once we're done with the broadcast, because it's just a little bit easier for us to focus. So please, if you have questions, and if there's anything that you want to add to the conversation, by all means do so. It's just a little bit, you know me, I can't do more than one thing. I'm not good at that, especially with the comments. This is not a new thing for me, Joan. Like, I always have issues with the comments. So, but we will get back, Dr. Joan and I will get back, and we will be able to answer your questions or, you know, receive comments. So, you know, keep them coming. It's just that, you know, just want to let you know that. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
So going with biohacking is the idea that you can make little changes in your life in a variety of areas that have a huge impact in your health overall. And that's a beautiful thing. So I would say that if I were a regular physician, like a general practitioner, I would have been a functional medicine specialist.
Yeah, you know what? Me too. I say that all the time as well.
I'm about root cause. I'm about getting to the underlying. Now, even as a podiatric physician, I have a surgical skill, but I did very few surgeries. Why? Because I saw that there were conservative measures that could be addressed. I loved educating my patients and incorporating and asking for their compliance and cooperation in their care, and figuring out what is it that's causing this in the first place. I would tell the patients all the time, I'm not chasing around your problem with a steroid. It's just not going to happen.
Right, exactly.
Why do you have this pain? Let's address that. Then I can get rid of some residual with an injection or even a prescription. But I avoided pharmaceuticals. I took a conservative approach, a root cause approach, and that's what I do for my own body. So if I have back pain, I buy a pure posture, a board, and I give myself a massage every day, an adjustment. If my neck bothers me, I buy a neck hammock and I pull that. If I have tight muscles, I figure out why my knee hurts, and I figure out I have an imbalance in the muscular tightness, and I buy myself a Graston, and I do a really hard, deep, what do you call it? Not just a deep tissue massage, but it's like almost like a break up adhesions.
Like acupressure?
No, it's like breaking up adhesions.
Oh yeah. No, I understand what you mean. Yeah, breaking up like scar tissue and stuff.
So that's how I've treated my body, and then there's another concept. It's an extension of, or actually, it's a focus of biohacking, which is called nutrigenomics. And that is when you use plants and plant products to impact gene expression. And that's a very cool concept because that's my thing. I understand food. I know how it makes my body feel. And now we're getting scientific data that's saying that when you get all the nutrients, that you actually have a improved health, which sounds obvious, but when I tell you about the modalities I'm working with right now, some technologies that I'm involved in, I'll tell you that there is now scientific being studied at Harvard and MIT, a direct correlation between food and health, which is not just obesity and your plaque or something like that. It's a direct impact on a molecule in your body that has an impact on your DNA and health. So can I take the time now to talk a little bit about
Absolutely. Just go for it.
Hog wild, right? So the cell, I'm going to start at the cellular level, but I promise it's not like when I was a baby. I'm not going to take it from the beginning like that.
That's fine.
I promise. The cell is the smallest structural and functional unit of the body. As such, a cell makes up, millions of cells make up some tissue, which then make up an organ. So your skin, your eyes, your hair, your feet, your bones, your muscles, your tendons, your nerves, your blood vessels, every single thing in your body is made up of cells. And if you remember the concept of cloning, it means that they can take one cell from your body and recreate you, because every cell has all the the genetic material that makes up every part of you. But that cell in that location is differentiated. It becomes part of a
So a
tissue.
liver cell is a liver cell, a bone cell is a bone cell? Yes.
It's part of an organ now, and now only the genetic information that is appropriate for function within that organ is being expressed. So let's go back. So within the cell, they have a whole bunch of organelles. I said it was the smallest structural and functional unit in the body. The ability to make energy is your mitochondria. It takes a molecule of glucose and converts it to ATP. Every cell has tons of mitochondria. Some cells throughout your body have more mitochondria than others based on the energy requirements, right? Your nervous system is always active, but your digestive system definitely sleeps. So there's a an adjusted amount. This mitochondria, when it's creating energy, it creates something called superoxide, which is an electron-rich oxygen. That's called a free radical. Most people have heard of free radicals.
Right.
Oxidative stress is another kind of a buzzword, and it is the difference between the free radicals we create and the antioxidants we have to control them, to combat them. So as we age, we have increasing amount of oxidative stress for two reasons. The main reason is when we're young, we have systems in place within the cell that keep us healthy. And one of them is that we actually create our own antioxidants. SOD, catalase, and glutathione. For those of you in the know, those of you who are not in the know and don't care, ignore it.
But don't try to spell them if you don't.
Yeah, like superoxide dismutase? No. And we can put it in the comments in case people want to look it up. But when those systems are in place, our body is making it. So it's kind of like being a non-diabetic and having a pancreas that's functioning optimally.
Yeah.
Food, you have a release of a certain amount of insulin. The feedback mechanisms are such that your blood sugar stays within a certain balance within the blood, right?
Right.
Beautiful, credible, perfect health. When you're a diabetic and your pancreas isn't functioning, there's an exogenous form of insulin, which is keeping people alive. But it's so inexact that they have these high and low blood sugar peaks. And unfortunately, those fluctuations cause multi-system damage.
Yeah.
That's why diabetics end up with amputations. They have neuropathy, arthropathy. A lot of them go blind because of
kidney
retinopathy,
yes, absolutely.
And nephropathy, which is diseased kidneys. So these are common sequelae, common complications of being a diabetic and being on insulin. But what if you could massage that pancreas back into functioning? It would be delivering the exact amount. You would never have those problems.
Right, of course.
The cell is young. When we are young, the cells have these systems in place that are precise and exact to protect us. As we age, they peter off.
Yes.
And when that happens, now our cells are susceptible to damage. So the free radicals damage every organelle within the cell. And then, like I said earlier, the oxidative stress increases as we age for two reasons. We actually create fewer antioxidants, and there's a cumulative effect to that free radical damage. So the sad thing is that damaged cell is vulnerable to disease, period, unquestionably.
Right.
And oxidative stress is absolutely indisputably the underlying cause of over 200 chronic illnesses. So there actually is a way to activate a system that we have when we're young that now will keep us healthy. So it's a beautiful thing to be able to actually address that at the cellular level, stop the free radical damage, allow the cell to heal, and then it then becomes the fully functioning protective, unit that it's supposed to be. A second of the theories of aging, because these are 3 theories of aging. So the first one is the oxidative stress and free radical damage, and the antioxidants are considered survival genes.
Yes.
In the second theory of aging, the mitochondria themselves become damaged because they are vulnerable to the damaging effect of the free radicals that they create.
That's not, and the irony, yes.
And mitochondrial biogenesis, that is that biogenesis being bio in the body, genesis creating.
Right.
Is a function that we have fully functioning when we're young, and as we age, just like the antioxidants, this begins to peter off, slows down. We have a reduction in the number and the function of the mitochondria, and with it, we have another set of obvious consequence being a reduction in energy, but also diseases that are associated with that. And the third theory of aging, and the one that I referenced when I talked about food, is being studied actively and aggressively by Dr. David Sinclair at Harvard and Dr. Leonard Guarente at MIT, and they have discovered in cells that show the capacity for longevity, which is their ability to do, replicate. The common denominator was this compound called NAD, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, which has numerous functions in the body. It's one of the oldest molecules known, and it sadly also diminishes in amount as we age, but it is essential for energy production. It's part of the Krebs cycle in the mitochondria. It's essential for autophagy, which is the cleaning out of the cellular debris. So it's kind of like, how would I describe it? Like if you never took out your garbage, right? You can't function in your home with the overload of that. It's in the way, it smells, it brings maggots and flies, and that's what the cell is like if it's not cleaning out its debris. And every once in a while you want to stimulate autophagy. But the one that they've been studying is its impact on sirtuins. So a sirtuin protein is SIRTUIN, in case anyone's interested, is something that actually sits on the DNA molecule. It protects it and repairs it, but it also is in control of gene expression. So if you remember, I said there's a direct connection between what we eat, our food, and diseases. And it's not just what the obvious thing about obesity and that. The studies that they did were on mice, and they would take some mice out of a litter of mice, and they would calorically restrict them. That would activate NAD. There would be an increase in the levels of NAD. And with it, all those benefits, the energy production, the autophagy, but also the stimulation of NAD, which increased sirtuin activity. Now, these animals lived demonstrably and measurably longer than their litter mates that became obese. The obese ones developed the diseases that you'd expect from obesity. So here comes food, right? Eating too much food, we get fat. That obesity brings on disease. But when they were able to activate NAD in these obese mice, that impacted the sirtuins, they were paying attention to the DNA, and the disease processes reversed.
That's incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And
so,
we need to preface by saying that, or preface might not be the right word, but we need to just be clear that that doesn't mean that if you take anything that can, increase these levels, that you can eat whatever you want. Like it's still, you still have to make, better choices. But what this is saying, it basically, right, Joan? I mean, you're saying that there are ways to, if not reverse the quote aging process, because like we have this idea of when we get to a certain age, it is expected that we're going to be in pain, we're going to be, our muscles are going to get weaker, our bones will get weaker, we're more prone to cancers, everything in our body just starts to diminish, which there's a reason we feel that we think this way, because we see it happening. People get older, right? But I mean, there's been a lot of research done over the years, even just in pain, like saying that technically speaking, that we are not supposed to really, as we age, pain is not a normal for aging. It's right. Technically not part of aging, even though we always say it, even in expressions, we'll say, oh, I'm getting old. I got, my back hurts in the morning. I'm getting old. So what you're saying now is that if we basically work at that cellular level, that we not only can stop that progression of the cells diminishing, but we can also even reverse or reestablish a cell that might have been starting to die off or something like that.
That's exactly right.
Establish it. So that's very, very, very cool. That's very cool biohacking. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, listen, it's not just about looking good. Although remember Billy Crystal's character? It's always
no matter how you feel, it's how you look. You look marvelous.
You look good and they'll feel good. So it's not, but see, you could get both. Like what this is saying is that you can not only feel better, but you do look better. And it's just, and it's not saying that you're not gonna, you're gonna look like a 20-year-old at 100 years old. But it's saying that, like, what's your quality of living? If you're 80 years old and you are like, you can't even get out of the chair, or better yet, if you're 60 years old and you can't even get out of the chair, versus somebody who's 80 years old who's very active and living a full life and enjoying themselves, that's you know, that's the trade-off. I mean, who's willing to trade off and say at 60, I just want to sit there and be in so much pain and can barely move? I mean,
why be alive, really?
I'm not well. I say that to my kids all the time. I said, listen, I'm going to live till like I'm 100 years old just to aggravate you. Like, that's the only reason I live that long, is just to annoy you guys that much longer. But seriously, like, of course we all say we want to live longer, but we also have to put that piece in. It's like, listen, I don't want to just be, you know, like my kids put me up against a wall and I'm just sitting there, you know, and I'm 90 years old. I want to participate. I want to participate in my life. I want to participate in their lives. And I want my quality of living to be what I feel it should be at that age. So
We'll do a search for Dr. David Sinclair, because he speaks on health span all the time. He's written a book. Shame on me, I can't think of the name of it right now, but he does a talk that I listen to, and he starts by saying, he addresses the audience and he says, who in this audience would like to live to be 120? And like 4 hands go up. Like, because the image is, okay, so I'm in, no, nobody wants to.
no, I do.
Most people don't, because you're bent over, you can't feed yourself, you can't toilet, you're wearing a pull-up, you're in pain all the time, you're seeing a different doctor every day of the week. No, thank you. But then he says, how many of you would like to live to be 120 and healthy? And every single hand,
yes.
so that's the distinction, and that's now possible. So it is not anti-aging at and this, from an aesthetic point of view, which I told you, I own the anti-aging spa, and that's really not where it's at anyway.
No, right.
Proud of this stuff. It says we've been around a while and we're still unbelievably healthy, but it's addressing what is the root cause of illness. Your cells. If your cells are not healthy, which they aren't, nobody's are. It doesn't matter how healthy I am, how well I've been all these years, how many years I've been exercising, how I'm at the top 3% of women my age on my Peloton, or how I'm more fit than most of the kids that
Had to throw that in, by the way. Good for you.
I check it every day. I'm like, if I'm not in the top 3%, and you know, when I go to the group, because I'm 59, when I go to the group, there's females at 60, I'm number 1.
Nice.
I'm good with this. But you know, it doesn't matter, because I'm still, my systems that were in place when I was young in my cell still have stopped functioning. I still don't have mitochondrial myogenesis. I still don't have good enough levels of NAD, and I still don't have any protection from the free radicals. So that curve that looks like this, it says this is the health of people, and then at 50, this is the disease. I could have gone that direction, and you're right what you said earlier. It doesn't mean that you can eat garbage and then do something to improve your health at the cellular level. It is a package deal. That's biohacking. It's addressing this in as many areas as you can. But activating systems, there's only one way to do that. And that's what makes it so exciting.
And that's what, that's why I want to set something up in the future again with you, so we get like even more detail on exactly what you're talking about, like how to actually create this and activate this, because I think it's something that we all need, you know, especially, you know, like with everything that's been happening. And I know we're actually over time, I think, but that's okay. So it's just, you know, with everything that's been happening, when we think about the virus, for instance, COVID-19, you know, who's the most at risk are these individuals that have these underlying health conditions, you know, that we know of so far. I mean, that's, you know, we still don't know a lot about that virus, but overall, that's what we would say. So individuals that have lung issues, individuals that are diabetic, heart disease, immune dysfunctions, but just, you know, these things are not meant to get rid of disease, but what they're doing is they're fixing the cell. And that's, you know, medications treat symptoms, and some medications might actually get rid of some of the disease process, but there's really not much out there that can actually fix the cell, which is what needs to be fixed. That's the building block.
That's right.
So if you're going at that level, then it's like you can only go up from there. Like in other words, like you get better. You don't start focusing on you know, like, oh, this disease, and you just focus on the fact that your body is going to present itself in the most meaningful, healthy way, which means to be disease-free, because if that's, you know, in your, you know, in your practice, like for your body. But basically that's what it is. It's like, that's why when you look at children, they heal so much quicker. They don't have a lot of diseases. Not saying that they don't have diseases.
Very rarely.
But
Right.
nothing, right. So right, they always say, quote, after 50, you know, that's when, after 50, that's when you're supposed to get, you know, the prostate check.
And we just throw up our hands and say, well, that's just the way it is. That, you know,
That's right. But that's not anymore.
No, and I never believed in that. Never, ever, ever, not my whole life. When my patients would say to me, I'd say, you got to find out about that. Go to your doctor. They come back, they go, he told me, what do you think you are, 30? I'm like, go get another doctor.
Yeah.
That's not an acceptable answer. You need to know, and you have a right to know what's going on with you, and get to the root cause and fix it. Stop with the Band-Aids. Stop with the drugs that don't cure but treat. Keep you in the system forever and ever and ever. What is the end of, why did that happen? The body is so amazing.
Yes.
You study the body and you understand all the feedback mechanisms and the sensitivity of everything and how everything works together to correct and everything.
Right.
It's not why we get cancer. It's not where did you get it. It's why didn't the systems that protect you from that fail to do that? Because we all have cancer cells going on in us all the time, and there are all these systems available, apoptosis, and just the whole system is interrupted by environmental factors or attitude and your you know, negativity and those kinds of things are hugely epigenetically influential. So you know, there's a lot. We have so much more control of our health than is you can even believe. It's just beautiful. But you're absolutely right. When you have a sick cell, it's very unlikely you're going to have a healthy person, because that is the building block of everything. And all these feedback mechanisms and all the functionality and the intricacies and the beauty of our body is based on having these cells intact and functional. And in most people, they are not. In me, they are. And so I would love to talk to people at a later date about, you know.
Yes, we will definitely set this up, because, you know, here's the end piece is the fact that I know you have a call to get on, but it's the piece here is that this is like, for years we wanted to live longer, and we accomplished that. We live longer, but what's the trade-off? Now we're at a level where we know so much. So why is it enough to just say, well, we could live really long, but the quality of life. So, we could get the person to be 95, but they're going to be in a home for 10 years or whatever. So now I think it's time that we have to level up. We have to say, okay, listen, it's great. I want to live to be 95, but I also want to be like riding my bike at 90 and taking long walks at 95. So great. So I'm glad that you're on board for having another conversation. I thank you so much for coming on tonight. Again, folks, it's just, you know, leave your comments. Leave your, you know, questions. We will get back to you over the next few days, and, you know, stay tuned. We will set something up again with Dr. Joan. And again, thank you, my dear. I love you. And so much for being. You look beautiful, and you definitely don't look 59, honey. You don't feel it, right?
Oh my God. I always tell people I'm so confused when my kids don't want me to hang out with them. I'm like, well, we're like buds, aren't we? We're all in our 20s, aren't we?
Listen, you know what bothers you when they say to you, when you're with your like daughter or something, and they say, "Oh, are you sisters?" Then you're like,
no one's ever said that. I don't have any gray hair. This is my natural color, so I still don't have any gray. But
that's
I do.
Great.
I really don't. I have maybe 3 or 4 hairs in the front.
Oh,
but this is definitely not as tight as it was when I was younger.
Oh, yeah, no, I said that the other day on my Facebook Live the other day. I had a choker on, and I'm like, this is why when you get to a certain age, and I'm saying this, you don't wear a choker, because this gets in there, you know? So look how nice that looks when I do that.
Get hanging over it, right? Do you have a necklace on? Do you have a choker on? I see a little kid over here, but not. Cut that part out, will you?
Yes, it's right here.
That's why I talk like this. Like the nostrils and my tight skin.
And you kind of do this. You stick your head forward. Yes.
Yeah, that's their platysma. Remember?
That's right.
It was a pleasure, Lauren. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. You guys have a great evening, and I'll speak to you at the next mindful conversation. Thanks so much. Take care.